So hopefully this is live now, and we can get some started on this. Let's just double check. It's not. Right. So I'm going to be working on this JeaDsc module a bit and hooking it up with our Azure pipelines and some testing and other good stuff. Because I'm big into my Azure pipeline stuff, I also use Azure boards to work on, figure out what I'm going to do, when I'm going to do it, and any other random ideas I come up with. So I've got a nice list of tasks here to work on. And let's have a look at Azure pipelines first. So I'm going to build, and because pipelines are a bit of a bugger to work with in YAML initially, I'm going to create it in the GUI and then export the YAML. So GitHub, yep. Let's just fill this down. I want to go back because I want to do that. Now we use the visual designer. This tiny little link that people always miss. GitHub. Let's try this again. What? Empty job. I'll rename that a bit later on when we export this as YAML. So first things first, we want to figure out what we actually want to do with this build. So I want to pest in here using lovely pest test runner. I want to handle versioning. I want to get my test results out. Publish test results. Let's throw some code coverage in there as well. Where is it? Publish code coverage and copy artifacts. And publish. Build artifacts. Right, so let's raise these a little bit. Version at the top. Pest. That. CPN unit. That's right. Code coverage file is there. What else do we need to do in this? I just want to use my unit tests. Think of all the unit, and code coverage folder should be system.default that should be that. That's what I want for. Let's see. Let's just double check what contents I want here. So I want everything that is in the Git file. Ideally, this should all probably be one level down, so it's easy to export, but oh well. How do I do that? mini match filters are always a bugger to remember what they do, and we want not condition. That should get me all of the folders and the files. I think that's all I want. I'm happy with all that running. So I could just run this as it is, but I want this as YAML, so let's export all of that. I generally find it a lot easier to build this up in the GUI, add all these steps in as you needed to, and then export the YAML, because when using stuff like this test runner and some of the other tasks, it's not always obvious what the different things are, and the interface isn't always helpful about it. So let's add Azure PIpelines.yaml. Let's make sure I'm on the branch. I want to do this in its own branch so I can keep my changes nice and contained. And then we get a whole bunch of extra lines that we don't particularly want. Well, this isn't as bad as I've seen it in the past when it tries to give you more lines than you want everywhere. And let's get rid of those. Actually, it's the right one for that. Let's just double check my tag is correct. Which I can't do because I'm on the right branch. Did I tag these? Or did I only tag my integration tests? I only tag the integration tests. So that should be exclude tag integration. Azure pipelines. Could easily do this in the GUI with like a few clicks, but you get a bit stuck doing things. Always be making mistakes like that. Excellent. So to this one, and let's leave that. New pipeline. I'm not sure what changes I'm trying not to save, but okay. GitHub one. It's not a master yet. Quickly PR that in, and should be good to go. I need to make sure when I'm merging this, I don't merge it to the main repository, because this is a fork that Microsoft kind of abandoned from what I can tell. So I have to make sure I PR it into my own fork, not anyone else's. Let's merge that. Branch. refresh this. Let's make sure I'm nice and up to date on my local branch, and let's just do a git call rebase. This is going to screw over at least one person I know, but unfortunately this is what's going to be done. Because that's just how it's going to go, unfortunately. Right, excellent. It's found my code, and it's going to create myself a build. And now we get to run this a whole bunch of times to make sure it actually works. I already realized this is going to fail because there aren't any tests. Oh, actually there are tests in my master branch, I believe, so we should be good. So git version has set my branch to 0.1.0 because I need to add a git version file, because that should actually be 0.4.0 because I haven't tagged it actually. That'll be why. Let's do that. Git master. I want to tag. That's what I might as well just tag here now. Not include tags, I think is the correct switch. Apparently it's not. It's just tags. So hopefully that has tagged my code. Definitely not going to merge that yet. Although I have no idea where tags appear in there. It's supposed to appear here. Yep. See, there's master, excellent. So I'll worry about that at the moment. My build has succeeded. My limited number of tests should have passed. Okay, I have a few in here. All 8 of them. Excellent. My code coverage is probably awful, which only appears on the summary at the moment because, yeah, 4% code coverage. So we're not currently producing the correct index.html files that we need for the code coverage, but I have plans to work on that at some point. What's in the drops? It has my git folder. I don't want my git folder in there. Okay. Wait. Guess we need to fix that. Then I think, let's see, what do we actually want to publish here? Definitely not the XML files or the YAML, so it's just PS1s, PSD1s. Let's do it that way since that'll be a bit better. Slash PS1, PSM1, PSD1. Question is, do I care about the samples? What do we have in these? So actually, I think I only care about PSD1s and PSM1s and my license.txt. So let's not ship that because then I have to ship my tests. And let's ship my text, my license file as well. So I really want to ship as little as possible with this. So just my PSM1s, PSD1s, and the text file should be enough. Don't particularly care about the README because it's just the GitHub README. Definitely want to ship my pipeline stuff, my code coverage. Could ship my tests, but I don't particularly care about that at the moment. And samples, again, not hugely important to ship those. Set upstream. Excellent. So did that trigger build? It didn't, which is good. But if I do a PR now, we should automatically get wrong place. Switch files being exported out. Should have the trigger on my build. It should update here. Yep. So we've got the correct version number now. And then when I'm merging major features, I can tell semantic versioning to update automatically. And in my release, I will probably set it up to write the version number back to the repo as a tag and handle that way. And that's one thing I've definitely missed off this is version stamping those PSM1 files, PSD1 files. Just a bit of a bugger. Let's edit this one. Just grab the YAML I want. Luckily, here's what I prepared earlier in terms of writing version numbers to a file. So if we go version, I don't have the extension installed. Surprising. So I can't spell. So I work on a whole bunch of open source extensions for Azure pipelines and yeah, like the pasta one and the manifest versioning. And because I've worked with this before, I know I can version PowerShell manifests because I wrote that. So we can easily install this and handle versioning all of those lovely PSD1 files. When this decides to go to reasonable speed, install. Luckily I haven't merged the PR in yet, so I can quite easily add this in and put it all as part of one PR, which will be useful. Version. I've got a whole bunch of them. Version PowerShell. Everything under the sources directory. Use the build number, which I think is in fact not what I want to use. And that's almost certainly not what I want to use either. So what is the version number currently looking like in my PSD1 files? 3-part versions. Is that the same in all of them? They're 2 parts. Don't really care about those ones, it's just pair what I want. So let's change this regex a bit. And so Git version has a specific format, it outputs that in. Git version should do it. Excellent, I don't have Git version installed. Great. So let's grab the YAML for now. We want to do this any point before we copy the files. I usually do it straight after I've done the Git version. I don't need that. And as you can see, custom tasks have quite a lengthy name to them at times, which is why using the UI is considerably easier for most of these things. Some of them's not too bad if the internal stuff, but yeah, they get quite lengthy. Let's see if that's right. should be able to see in my git version task what different version numbers it's generated. If I run this again with diagnostics, this will generate me a whole bunch of diagnostic information, which I mostly don't care about, but in this case I want those git version numbers. And shouldn't take too long to get to that point again. Sources. Some more git version. What do we have? Big number of version numbers at the bottom. So the one I want is git version major minor patch, I believe. So I just want a 3-part version number. And although the December is useful, I don't actually need all of that extra information. And it will produce a whole bunch of extra nonsense that I don't need in build on master will just have 0.4.1 or whatever. And that's the main thing I care about when publishing to the gallery. But when I try to import the module, it'll almost certainly fail in my tests if I don't give it an actual valid number, which is why I'm going to use this one. What is that property called? I want for this. This will actually really go to the docs for this. Azure PIpelines, because we have all of this YAML descriptions published on the wiki, I think. Yes, I want this one. So I'm going to manifest. PowerShell module. Yeah, that's one version number. Let's make sure that I use the right thing. So denotes it as a variable within the Azure PIpelines builds. And let's update my repo and run another build and make sure this actually version stamps my modules correctly. So manifest version task. My PR should kick off automatically again. Any second now. Yep, my build is running automatically. The only problem with hosted agents is they're a little slow to spin up sometimes, which gets a bit of a pain, but yeah, 20-30 seconds isn't too bad. So the version was called correctly. We're versioning this, stamping this module now. We should be. And now that I think about it, that regex is mostly pointless, I believe. Oh, no, I think we use the regex to make sure that the version number you're passing in is in the format we expect. And in a lot of the other versioning tasks, we use that to do string replacement on the various manifest files. But in the PowerShell modules, it's nice and easy because we can just use JeaDsc's configuration module and update the PSD1 automatically in a nice simple single line after we install configuration it. So we don't really care what version number we're passed in. We should probably do a little bit of magic around handling things like pre-release flags and stuff, and updating the PS data, private data fields, but I don't at the moment. It's probably something for the backlog when I get a chance to look at it. In fact, because it's something for the backlog, I can shoot that on here. I keep coming up with new ideas. There we go, and I will deal with that at some point in the future. So my test is still passing. My mic volume's low. Well, unfortunately, I'm using my Xbox mic because I don't really have a better mic. And let's have a look and see if I can increase that mic volume. I'll have to dive into setting this mic volume. Let's have a look at OBS then. Well, it's on maximum in OBS, at least in the mic box. Can I give it more? Yeah, I did try it with the Surface Pro's mic, but then it was picking up all sorts of background noise and the clicking of my mouse, which isn't a particularly quiet mouse at the best of times. So I just have to speak up a bit, I guess. Or move it closer to my mouth, and yeah. A bit louder talking, I guess. Code coverage is still awful, but that's not surprising. Refresh this page. Why is that still running? Oh, because that's the CI build I was looking at, not the pull request build. Yeah, still running my tests. Let's just double check my artifacts are what I actually want them to be. PSD1s, PSM1s. My samples have been copied across, even though they're mostly useless in this format. And my modules, excellent. Let's just make sure this is being version stamped correctly. Yeah, I'll do. So, yeah. Version is correct, and god damn, that's bright on my monitor. Right, excellent. So let's merge this PR. Do a branch. And then let's update my logo references. Nope, I want a branch. I want one. Less double dashes. So this should then kick off another build, which, if I click on the right window, will no doubt have a whole bunch more tests running, I hope. Yep, so that's Raymond's CI PR I recently merged in, which is what I want to work on some more tests for soon. Because he's found some interesting issues with my parsing of the the strings that people have to pass in and not handling function definitions correctly. So that'll be my next thing. I have to test correctly and make sure I don't break it again in future. Let's see, I should have plenty of parallel jobs because this is an open source project. Although I wonder if it's because I'm not using public project. Is there anything in this project I particularly care about? Almost certainly not. Where do I go for this? GitHub. It's public. That should open me up to a whole bunch more. Yeah. Don't take care of test plans either, actually. That should give me all of my various pipelines. Public projects are not allowed in this organization. It's my organization, so I'm pretty sure they are. Preview features. Yeah. Why aren't public projects allowed in this organization? Why do I change this? This is an interesting problem. I've never really found one. I don't think it's going to be policy. Oh, allow public projects. A bizarre place to put that. Okay. There we go. Excellent. So I should then be able to go to retention jobs and say I have tons and tons available. Yeah. Get my 10 free pipelines. Plus various other things from MSDN and whatnot. So I've got a whole bunch more tests in this branch, and it'll probably take a little bit longer to run. That's fine. Ooh. Excellent. They failed, and that's a good sign. So one failing test and a whole bunch of code coverage missing out. At least I'm up at 21% instead of 4%. Right. Let's have a look at my tests. So in my validate path method, should return false. Why is it in the path? Am I doing something stupid here? Nope. IPS module path doesn't include this path. So let's try running this locally. What have I brought me here? Nothing. PowerShell intended console, that's what I want. Currently, there is no on error state in here. That's okay. Let's do the old fashioned way then. And of course my test passed locally. Great. How do we get this done? So let's hit the debugger. Let's not hit the debugger since apparently it doesn't want to let me do that. Validate path. doesn't match my PS module path, then it should throw. But it's actually returning true, which, given the path I've given it, should definitely not be the case. How is it doing that? This is where, once again, debugging on private agents is a real bugger, not public agents even. So now the tests are passing there. The path I'm giving it will get into that path. That's because that's the wrong test. That's the test I'm going to be looking at. Right. Let's figure out how to debug this when my VS Code doesn't want to work properly. Let's try the old open and close VS Code. Summarize it correctly. That's where we'll be testing. Let's wait till the extension starts up before I try debugging anything. There we go. Right. F5. There's no one ever in here. What the hell is it all about? This was working previously. In fact, I don't have a launch.json for this to error on, so I'm not sure why it is trying to error on that. Debug console. Oh, where is it? Output. One of these is going to have. To the Google machine, I guess. I've forgotten what the error message is already. That definitely does not fit. It is because it is not. Tyler raised this. Excellent. He has a basic file. It's because I've got the live share extension by the looks of it. I remember seeing an issue about that recently. So let's disable the live share extension because I don't use it very often. See if this works now. Keyboard. Let's get in the waiting. Much better. Okay, let's debug into this and figure out what's going on. I suspect it's not going to be particularly helpful since the test passes locally, but overall, see. So the file's called that. Let's call that. So if I look in PS module path, definitely does not have my fake path in it. Goes to false, returns false as I expect. Test passes. Excellent. Now, how do we debug this in a build? I suspect I'm going to have to add a whole bunch more diagnostics to this. A whole bunch of write verbose messages. Let's see what this gives me. To be honest, I should probably add a whole bunch of write verbose and other useful messages anyway for when people actually run this on their boxes using something like start JeaDsc. Let's see if this gives me anything useful at all this time. See, this takes a little while because I'm having to install configuration every single time, but that's the cost of making my life a lot easier. Means the build takes a minute or two extra, but I don't mind it. Saves me having to try and rewrite PSD1 files. Right, and now we're doing the same thing with Pesta, where we're installing the latest version of Pesta that's available in the gallery and running that. It should be the same version as I have locally, which is 4.4 point something. This is what I'm using is 4.4.2. I think there's a newer version. I can't imagine that's broken one random test if all of the other tests work fine. Okay, let's see. There's my failing test. Yep, absolutely no more extra information. Great. Okay, now let's write a whole bunch of extra debug information in here then. And we want to write what properties is a file? Lazy, you don't want to type too much. I'm definitely going to remove almost all of this, but it'd be too verbose at the moment, and then cut back a little bit when I get a bit further down and actually get it working. PSLC extension. Let's some colons in there, and path isn't part of path. So here I probably want to say again, I'll cut this right back because I definitely don't want this showing up in normal verbose logging for when people actually use the module, but it's kind of necessary right now. Okay, so I'll see path. See what that does to my test output. And I almost certainly want to enable always running on my test results and code coverage so that even if the test runner fails, it still outputs some useful information to my build. So that's going to be the next thing I have to add in. Right, let's see. Let me go through the whole versioning thing again. So let's quickly update that build task. Control options where I want it. Even if no, it's actually exactly the setting I want. So what does that look like? Succeed or failed? I don't like putting that in here, so we want that needs to go there, I believe. Yep, because it's not an input. So actually, let's put that here. Not quite the most sensible place for it to go, but it'll do for what I want at the moment. See. Right, excellent. It's running my tests, and it won't output anything because I'm just running this with normal output. So, wonderful thing about these builds, they only really pick up write host by default. So there are a couple of commands you can, a couple of extra bits of information you can put in your write host statements for the build to pick it up and show it by default. And yeah, so if you want to have your verbose messaging show up, you have to run it with system.debug is set to true. 100% certain why they chose that, other than maybe because the host stream's really easy to pick up and do things with. Well, it is for their use cases. But yeah, bit of a bugger for anyone to work with. There is a nice list of the different commands you can use if we look in the VSTS tasks repo, which is actually helpfully changed its name. Docs, authoring, commands. One of the few things that's actually reasonably well documented is all how to do the different types of logging. So you can log warnings and errors, and they will flag up on the summary page correctly as if they're warnings and errors. You can set variables this way, and yeah, you can put your log details in the various types. And what's the other option? That's the main ones apparently. Yeah, log issue and log detail are the two you can use. Well, any of them really, but they do slightly different things depending on where you want to write to. And we get all of our wonderful verbose output now from one of the many things we're doing. There we go. Right. Let's have a look. So here's all of our pastor output. So my failing test, which allegedly is, I'm specifying the path on, is actually looking at this file, which is interesting because my path should be this. Why is that happening? What happens if I debug into this and have a look at that path? Is my machine hacking it around, or is that something really bizarre that the build agent's doing? So if we have a look in one of these that has the class in it. So my file object has a path of, the full name is definitely what I think it should be. It doesn't exist, which is fine because I don't particularly care. I just care that the path is the correct sort of format. Directory is that. Yeah, and we don't care about the extension, about the length of the file, because again, it doesn't exist. So why the hell is the build agent changing that to that? That really makes no sense. Okay, let's do this another way then. I think I have a build agent installed on my machine. Indeed the machine I want to start up. So let's try this on my agent and see if we can have a look at that. So can I queue this on a different agent? Of course I can't. It's a YAML build. Why would I want to? Stop that debugging. And I want to change this to default, I believe. That should be the name of the queue. Let's do this the sensible way and do this in 2 commits because I want to keep one of these commits and not the other one. Let's skip that one. Let's add that one. This branch is going to get a little awkward, little ugly when I start rebasing and removing some of these commits, but so be it. Publish results and coverage on fails. So now this should fire off on my machine and we can have a look and see if it happens there as well. That should hopefully be a little bit quicker because I should probably already have configuration installed. And apparently my phone has decided not to give me any notifications from Twitter. Excellent, what am I missing? Oh, what the hell's the pool called? Is it even available? Default. Clearly there. I've run build on it before. Let's do this the other way then. What is the hell of that name? Oh, what other requirements do I not have? So if we do a quick bit of adding to populate this, with the steps I'm doing, there's no demands, and pipeline is still called default. That's definitely the name of the queue. Let's just make sure. Nope. There's definitely nothing has changed in that file. Great. Do I need anything else? There's no demand on this build. Enable that. Pretty sure these steps don't require anything special from them. Copy files. Yeah, no demands. Why is this build agent not accepting jobs? It accepts the other one. Builds. Couldn't find a pool. Oh. to authorize it for YAML use. That makes total sense. Yeah, why not? If you want to build off a different branch, make sure you're using, you have to go and authorize every single branch, because of course that makes sense. Let's try the visual design. Let's see if I can do it there. Definitely want that branch on one. Why wouldn't this make total sense? No idea what the hell that's going to do, but maybe it'll work now. Let's make sure I get all the output that I want. Let's see what happens with this one. If it finds that the queue is actually built. There we go. Right. Interesting. Is this something to do with the task itself? Quite probably. Excellent. So I have to contact the task author, which is me, so that might be a little bit of a difficult problem. Why is that saying? Definitely not on x86 Windows. That I'm 99% certain of. Oh. Okay, let's do some more hacking around then. Azure PowerShell module. Let's take that out. Those really useful commit messages. So I remember to remove it. Don't try and push this further on. Of course, that's going to happen with that one as well. And yet again, I am the author, so I can't necessarily contact anyone else about this. Does not carry a implementation that's compatible with your current operating system. Well, let's go and have a look at the code for this extension. It's all nice and open source. I know I'm using the legacy PowerShell step, so that might be the problem. Although I'm running this on other build agents that are on-prem and don't have this problem. I don't want the task.json. Yeah, so I'm just using the normal legacy PowerShell step. Why are you complaining about this on my build agent? What's special about this build agent? Apparently I am actually on x86. How? my system settings. Except quite clearly, my system settings are 64-bit operating system, 64-bit processor. I think there's a problem with my agent, then I'd guess. Why is it called? Let's cheat a little. That's so you can add custom capabilities to private agents quite easily, and maybe you can add them to host agents as well. But the really useful thing is you can use this to limit what builds run on what agents, or if it has a certain requirement in one of the tasks that you can't meet when you by default, but you deal with it as part of your dependency installment, then you just add the capability and it'll just continue on. I have no idea if this is going to work though, so let's find out. Let's see if we can pretend we actually are on x64, even though we actually are. Let's have another look through here. Why does it think I want x86? Clearly picking up x64 stuff, but it's thinking on x86 somehow. Nope, that didn't fool it. That's going to be a bit of a bugger. So that means I can't test this locally. Okay. I wonder if it's something to do with the agent itself. Let's uninstall it and reinstall it. D. Let's do this on my other screen. Don't take note of giving out path tokens in the middle of stream. That's what. Just delete that and re-download the agent. I have it already downloaded, so I mustn't have installed this that long ago. For fuck's sake. So it's really nice of them to have this tiny little checkbox there, really obvious which one you want to download. Let's try the x64 one. That would almost certainly explain all of my problems, in this instance at least. Not all of the other problems that we're probably going to have. Right, that's downloaded. Let's extract this and let it start on it. Come on, Chrome. It's only 100 meg. It's not a big file. So that means I can actually put this stuff back in. I can just do git revert. No. Let's just do that. Put that task back in. It's going to kick off a build that's going to fail, but I don't care at the moment. I just want this to open this bloody file. Just take it out my downloads folder. X64. Let's extract this all to usual folder. That's yeah. So that looks like an email to the team to swap those buttons around, because who really wants an x86 build agent these days as the default option? Yeah, it should definitely be x64 as the default. Quite annoying. Almost done extracting. Let's set this agent again. Second, because I don't need it. So that's a useful thing to know when you're setting up private agents, is that it needs a PAT token to do the initial setup, but after that you don't need the token at all. So it's quite useful to create a temporary PAT token which just has agent pool, manage and read, and then you can just revoke it afterwards. You don't need it anymore. Right, so my agent set up again. Actually x64 this time. I was waiting for my build agent to become available, and there we go. Excellent. Let's see if this actually runs through end to end now. Let's progress, because it looks like it's actually doing stuff. And it shouldn't take too long this first, well, the first time will take a little while to install the stuff, as I don't have that version configuration, although I should have, since it's already run once. I guess it didn't, yeah. Let's see. This becomes a case that the hosted agents can't run this because of screwing around with the paths for some reason. No, it's not. Yeah, I was going to say that I can just run this from my agent, but apparently it still fails there. What the hell is this build doing to cause that? Let's make sure it's coming up with the same build. There it is, which it probably is. I thought this was going to be the easy part, setting up a build. I suppose the setting up the build is very easy. Getting the build to pass correctly is the difficult part. That's the versioning. I've got a task set to always download configuration. I shouldn't have, because that's a really stupid thing to do. 28 seconds is probably not downloading configuration again. And this shouldn't be downloading Pester again. It should just be checking that the version I've got locally is the same as the latest version available in the gallery, or whatever repository source there is available. This one failure, excellent. Let's somewhere around here. Yeah, so that's still hacking on that path. I wonder why that's doing that. It's definitely nothing in the Pester extension that should be doing that. Okay. Yeah. That I have no idea about. So I'm going to let this fail for a while and set myself up a release, since we might as well get something done in this stream. So at the moment my build is outputting my module files, and only the module files that I care about. I then want to take that and publish that to the gallery as a separate step, because I want to run my build lots of times, but I only want to release on master. So let's add an artifact. So we want a build output of that. I always want the latest version. I don't know why they put that there, that's annoying. Let's do that, tidy that up a bit, make it a bit more usable. So we want continuous deployment triggers, yep, we want that, but we only want to do that on master. I don't want to do pull request triggers. And then the way a release works, because I might as well explain this for people, is it will take some number of artifacts, which usually is only one, but can be multiple builds. You can pull straight from code repositories. You generally shouldn't. You can pull from Azure artifacts, which is the NuGet feed, the npm feed stuff we have in Azure DevOps services, containers, Docker Hub, Jenkins. So yeah, you generally want to pull build output or some of these things. Very, very rarely do you want to pull stuff straight out of source code, source control, and do stuff with it, unless it's things like deployment scripts, which you're not actually going to push out anyway, you're just going to store and make use of. Then you have a number of stages where you do stuff, and you can chain these together in some interesting ways. But each stage has pre-deployment conditions, which are basically what should I do to deploy this. In this case, it's just after the release is created, trigger this and run it. But we can put some more filters in here as well to say definitely only run this automatically on master for those times when I decide to create a release on a different branch. I only want it to ever actually automatically deploy if it's master, just to give you another level of making sure I'm not screwing things up. We can have pre-deployment approvals, which is really useful for if you're deploying stuff to test environments and production, where your first stage might be automated testing and it just does stuff and you don't particularly care other than that it passes. But your next stage could be test, and you only want to allow things into test when the test team want it to go into there. So you put some approvals in there for specific people to say yes. So if I put myself in there, and there is an option on one of these. Yeah, so you can see I can't approve my own releases, which is quite useful. And there was a tick box somewhere to say how many people had to approve this. So if I put other me in there we go. So I can choose what sort of approval order I have to have. Afternoon, Tom. So yeah, I can say anyone can approve it, which is any one user. Everyone has to approve it, but I don't particularly care what order they are, or in sequence where it's this person has to approve it, then this person, then this person. That gets really useful as you get closer and closer towards production, when you have various stakeholders and other people signing stuff off. Deployment gates are really cool for automating a lot of this approval process. We make use of that in our release pipelines for. I'm working on setting up a pipeline for my JeaDsc module. I'm just going through the release process at the moment because my build is failing for stupid reasons, which I will go back to in a minute and you can have a look at. Yeah, so gates are useful for automatic approvals. We don't care about any of that at the moment. So I just want to put in a nice task for PowerShell. One day we will get YAML releases and make this a bit easier to keep things going. You haven't missed too much, Tom. Mostly me just getting angry at my build and not being sure why it's currently failing, even though it passes locally. I want to grab my other window, grab some code from a different repository. Because I don't like writing code a lot, let's just steal my publishing code from some of our internal ones. Just sign in. Oh, I know how my watch is lagging. Releases. So I find this release that I want. One task. I will hack that path around a bit because that's the old version. Yeah, this one's failing for some interesting reasons. So this path should be system. JeaDsc drops. A new API key will be stored as a variable. So if I do possibly will be this gallery. So I want to publish that to my internal one because I don't have that internal repository available from here. A bunch of extra switches. So if we go to here, I can add a variable called NuGet. I can make this a secret because I don't particularly want to post this on the stream. So I want API keys. Which API key is that for? That's for all of them. Let's create one that's scoped. So I should be able to paste that into there. Save that. I definitely want to save it. Should really give that a sensible name, but we'll come back to that in a minute. So this is JeaDsc publish. So initially I'm just going to publish straight to the gallery. Ideally I would have a stage before this that runs my integration testing on a box, and then only if all of that passes will it then publish to the gallery. That's further down the line for this plans. So let's go back to my build and we can show Tom the joys of this. So I have a test here, nice and simple. It runs some validation on this path. The path quite clearly is not part of my PS module path. And due to the magic of the build process, apparently my path is actually part of my PS module path. And it's changing it somehow for some reason. And I have no idea. I don't know how that's being changed or why that's being changed. It's the only reason I can think of it doing that is because the path doesn't exist, and my debugging clearly shows it doesn't exist because when I'm creating that object, I wonder if it's worth creating a new item at that location and then seeing what happens. Because I don't particularly care if it exists or not, I just care that the path is part of the end module path. So it does not make sense, and I'm not actually doing anything with it. So if I debug this locally, Stupid keyboard. Yeah, so if we debug this locally, all I'm doing is saying for this path, make sure it's a PSRC file, make sure it's in a role capabilities folder, and then make sure it's part of my end module path. And none of that should be doing anything to do with the actual object, doing anything with the path. And yeah, the only problem is it doesn't exist. But I'm not sure why that should matter. And in fact, it probably shouldn't exist the first time you run this. So yeah, that's weird magic that the build agent's doing, I imagine. So yeah, I suspect it's because it's in a place. If it's because it doesn't exist, then I can create something in the test drive instead. To do that, I'm going to have to dig out that code I had for test drive. Don't particularly want to try creating things outside of this area. So before I run the mock, I'll do false to make sure all of the folders exist. False. This will. I suspect this will probably fail because I'm trying to create things from the root of C, but I guess we. Although if I run this on my machine, it should probably pass. And this work. Let's try this again. Should be nice and quick now because I have those modules. Unfortunately, Tom, it is not Leah. That would be a nice middle name, but not quite. So my tests still fail. And of course, the test isn't running with verbose logging. Did it create that file for me? Yep, so that file definitely exists on my C drive. I'm sorry to at least disappoint you a little by saying it's not Leah. Yes. Well, I suppose I could always change it one day, but it doesn't quite fit. should really figure out how to get these variables to be part of a build definition as the YAML, but I suspect it's still changing that path, even though that file definitely exists. So one test is failing. Not these ones. It's still changing that. But it's not changing these other ones. Am I looking at the right test here? Should return false when the path isn't in fixed module path. Yep. That's oh, I'm an idiot. It's actually not screwing around with my paths, because these verbose messages are for the next test in line. Okay, so these are the actual things. Okay, those are the verbose messages for this test. That's fine. But why does it think it's part of my env module path? Okay, let's remove that line because we don't want that. Wait. Let's move my logging out of there and put it here. There we go. Right. Right, let's see what this does now. See what it actually thinks my PS module path contains, because I'm pretty sure my changes further up in my test file that hack around the PS module path don't include where I'm looking. Of course I need to run that with debug. Right, let's see what this test fails for now. Remember to read the messages above your failed test, not under your failed test. Maybe we should put the path in here, but let's see. So that's the path. And none of these are what it should are in its matches. I wonder if there's something wrong with my regex. That will be my next guess. My regex is escape all the stuff in the path and replace semicolons with pipes. So if we do that, what does that give me? Yep. Looks valid to me. Bracket to grab. It looks like perfectly normal regex to me. So if we do match this big stuff. It doesn't match. So why? Not much. Thanks VS Code for being helpful. Yeah. So I should definitely drop into there. I'm happy with that. Let's do some outputting of that. Let's just make this life a bit easier and output that. And actually output the results from that. Is that the right number of brackets? Yep. This is going to be my build pass percentage pretty awful at the moment, but it's the benefits of these sorts of things rather than pushing this production and discovering I screwed something up quite horribly. I still have yet to write more tests for this, which will be the fun part. should be a lot quicker, and actually I'll put stuff pretty quickly because I don't need the verbose logging for this little bit. So that is my failing test. Is that supposed to be there? I wonder if that's got a semicolon at the start of the PS module path for some reason. Maybe that's what's causing this to have a pipe at the start, which would mean it shouldn't cause a problem. So if I go to back to the start, I'll put a pipe there, because that's what it looks like the path is. Huh. I suppose that's meaning nothing, which means it would match that. That would be the problem then, which means I need to trim those off. Let's just validate that, make sure that's true. If that's the case, that's very, very annoying that there's a random semicolon at the start of that PS module path, which I don't think I've seen before. Mine definitely doesn't have that. I wonder if that's a quirk of the build agent. Let's refresh this just to be sure. PS module path does not appear to have a semicolon at the start of the line. Huh. Is the task bit running it? The execution handler screwing that up? It wouldn't surprise me. I'm using the legacy one, which is probably something I need to fix and go to the PowerShell 3 extension handler. Need a bit of a rewrite of how I handle some of the stuff. Yep, there's definitely a semicolon at the start of that line. Bugger. Okay. Let's do that logging. Let's do .trim start. I think is the thing I want to replace, and that should do it. Hopefully this build should actually just pass. If that's the case, and then I can tidy up all of the extra debugging and stuff I've put in here just to get to this point. And then actually make some productive steps forward rather than mostly sideways. It's looking better. Excellent. My tests now pass. And my code coverage should be better, if not by much. 24 tests are passing, 22% code coverage, which is quite nice. And almost I need a lot more tests in this it currently has. So, what do we have to remove? I think I'm actually okay with most of this logging. This feels like a little bit of a hacky fix just to make tests pass, but if that's what I have to do to make this pass and make sure it works in production, then I guess that's what we have to do. So let's tidy up this commit message and all of this nonsense. So I want to run this, put this back on the normal build agent, which means I don't want this commit anymore. I want to go backward. So there. That should work, I think. Yeah, excellent. So interactive rebasing for this. This is fun. So we don't want that anymore. This, I want to drop that commit. Let's drop that one, that one, that one. I'll reword on this one. Tidy up my commit message, and actually on this one too. So, oops. Path. I have a merge conflict. Why do I have a merge conflict? Well, yeah. So I want to accept the incoming change. There we go. Is continue. Nice and easy fix for that. Remove any leading semicolons from Should remove trailing semicolons as well, because otherwise that's going to hit the same problem. I will do that after I finish this commit message. Remove any start end of. That's the matrix. Pipes. It's not a group, but I'll call it a group anyway. This is getting a little ugly. Let's turn this into a variable. It's not much better when you give it a quite a verbose name, but it'll do. So hopefully now this should all just pass. And keep my repository history a little tidier. And then if this all passes, I guess I might call it a day because I should probably eat something. And then I might do a bit more streaming later on to do some test writing and stuff for the new code that, well, the new PR that was put in, and some of the other stuff that it's reminding me I really should test. But while I'm waiting for this build, I can go to my board and tick off some stuff because I've done some work. Pipelines are done, release is done. It's not tested, but it's done. So yeah, I don't really want to test it at the moment because I don't have a release to actually do. It all looks good. Excellent. Everything passed. One thing I might do actually with my release is change it a bit. So I think actually I want this to run on every branch. Let's call that release. So what I actually want to do here is have it so that this is integration testing. So put space in X, it doesn't matter. And then this is so if I set this up to be after release, so what I want this to do is run my integration tests, which I have some of. But I need to write more. So then any build I run will automatically run my integration tests, and I can see whether they pass or fail. But the gallery publishing will only ever happen on my master branch, unless I want to manually come in and say, yes, actually deploy that on master. So I will come back to that and write some more tests and wire that in, which means I need to publish my tests as part of my build. And then we get to the big question, do I care if my tests go into the gallery or not? Probably not in their current format. I don't really mind. So let's add PS1. So let's do this. Might as well set this up now because it's pretty quick to do. Let's go here. So that build should run and still be passing. I should have some. I have half a dozen integration tests that are produced by it. So let's run those as part of my output. I'm going to publish test results. Test instead. As the deployment was cancelled, in unit, let's go in that location. Tags would be integration. Pretty sure that's what I tagged it with. I don't care about code coverage on these ones. The only problem then becomes, is that going to be the path they're in? It should be yes. Ideally, I'd split these integration tests out into their own file, but for now, they can live where they live. They should really be in their own file, but yeah. Save that. And in fact, that should automatically trigger when this build finishes, if it hasn't already finished, which hasn't. Excellent. Some of my tests haven't magically started failing, which is good. So now my artifacts should contain my tests folder. We do unit tests. Yep. And if I refresh this releases, I should now have release 1, it's probably going to be called. That's the default, yep. That's going to be running a hosted agent, so that'll take a few minutes to start up. What are my integration tests actually doing? Testing the set method. So I only have a few of them, but I'm making sure at least a basic level of coverage on the integration stuff. There needs to be a lot more for the things like function definitions and a few other things, but it's mostly there to make sure my conversion to and from strings into actual useful types are there and working. And apparently my tests passed. So 4 tests and they all passed. Excellent. Again, it hasn't published to the gallery because the condition's not met. That's good. I wish my build had passed as easily as my release did. So I think that's probably me done for the day, or at least for now until I've had some food. I'll come back to this either later tonight or some point in the next couple of days. So thank you everyone who's been hanging out watching, and I'll probably speak to most of you on Slack.